All guilt, no pleasure. Wait, that was backwards. I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't feel right. All pleasure, no guilt. She's too pretty to be smart. Hello, Champagne Dreamers. Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. I don't know how you found me, but I hope you'll hit that subscribe button and stick around. My name is Janessa, and I am North Dakota's trash queen of glam, geek, and gore. And for this video, we're just gonna relax. The world has been on fire. Let's go ahead and just count down some of my favorite guilty pleasures. Now, when I say guilty pleasure, these are things that maybe other people don't think are very cool, or maybe some people actively dislike them and try to campaign their dislike to the world. And I'm saying, you know what? I don't care. Honey Badger, don't care. I love it. I'm here to celebrate it. Sometimes I love things that are not the hoity-toity highbrow. I love a little guilty pleasure moment, and I never feel bad about it. So if you want to know what my top 10 guilty pleasures are, then stick around, because we're getting into it right now. Alright, so as we get started, let me just say my little disclaimer that all YouTubers have to do. If there's something on this list that you absolutely hate, you can let me know down in the comments. But you know what? We are here to be friendly and to enjoy ourselves. Guilty pleasures are about having a good time. So you know what? We can have a respectful conversation down in the comments below. As Angelica Nyqvist from Sweden would say, we're all friends here. Friends don't always agree, but they're always kind and respectful to each other. So if there's something you love that I didn't talk about it, tell me in the comments. If there's something on this list that you just hate, well then maybe that guilty pleasure is not for you. But it definitely is for me. Starting with number 10. In the number 10 spot, I love Roger Corman and his balls to the wall B-movie approach to film production. Do it cheap, do it fast, lots of boobs and blood and gore. I love it. And he took his turn at the superhero genre with Black Scorpion. I love Black Scorpion, and Black Scorpion is 2 movies and a TV show. So basically what they did is they created a couple of movies, Black Scorpion 1 and Black Scorpion 2, and they had these very Batman-esque villains. So there's part of it that is sort of like an updated, campy, very 90s sensibility retake on like the 60s Batman. So it's very colorful. The criminals are very campy. It's a good time. I had a lot of fun with it. Now, Roger Corman has always claimed that the creators of Hercules and Xena the Warrior Princess ripped off some of his movies. And so he had the Barbarian Queen, and he did another movie. I forget which one it was. I don't know if he did a Conan movie. So when he got done with those movies, he thought, well, we could shop around the idea for a TV series. And instead he was like, let's just make it ourselves. And he actually decided to make this TV series, Black Scorpion, without a network. It was so wild. He just decided, we're going to make it, and then we're going to shop it around, and we're going to see if somebody wants to buy it. And for a while, the Sci-Fi Channel did show it. And it's a little bit touch and go. Some of it is a little bit too B-movie. It's a little bit kind of sketchy. It's a little too corny. But it's just a lot of fun. And there are fun villains like Medusa and Aftershock. And so if you love that 60s Batman with the campy villains, it's very much like that. And there's like a villain of the week. And the costuming was really interesting and really well done. And there's a lot of really fun people who show up throughout it. So I would absolutely recommend that you check out the movies and the TV series of Black Scorpion. Who's ready for a cat fight? In the number 9 spot, I love Dynasty. Dynasty was a nighttime soap opera from the 80s, and there's a lot of soap operas that do that kind of drama, but Dynasty and Dallas were really the ones that were all about that 80s age of just too much consumerism. It was the age of excess. And Dynasty, to me, was the epitome of all of that. So there were all of these beautiful Nolan Miller gowns. So you had Linda Evans as Crystal Carrington, and then starting in season 2, you had Joan Collins as Alexis Carrington Colby, and they were always getting into these big cat fights. The big one that happened was in season 2, where Alexis and Crystal ended up in the, like, wading pool. They were in this, like, reflecting pool in these gowns. It was just ridiculous. And it became known for that. And Dynasty has a lot of really interesting plot points. I think that Dynasty is fun as this cultural artifact because not only was it the age of excess, but it was also one of the first nighttime soap operas to feature a gay lead character, Stephen Carrington. He wasn't always gay. They kind of backtracked and retracked. And if you were Stephen Carrington's boyfriend on that show, Molly, you in danger, girl. You are gonna die. Like, it just was not great for the partners of Stephen Carrington, but it was really fun and campy and had this great sensibility. It's known for having that lead gay character and what that was all about. You had Dominique Devereaux, who was played by Diane Carroll, who, there was this documentary talking about queer representation in media, where this guy talks about being at a gay bar, I think in Atlanta, and seeing Dominique Devereaux, TV's first black bitch. And it was really this moment that was great because it featured a black woman who wasn't playing the stereotypical roles for black women, playing a servant or a prostitute. She was in that world. And I saw an interview with Diane Carroll that was really interesting, where she said, I told them, just write me as a white person. If you try to write this as, like, let's make a statement, let's do all this stuff. She said, no, it's going to be a statement if you just write me like the white characters. And it was so interesting to see what they did because she just fit into this world and it caused all of this conversation. And so Dynasty, there is some layers to it, but it's also just campy fun. There's slapping and fighting and cussing each other out and there's intrigue. So I love it. I am always watching just little clips. If I need a little boost in my day, I'll open up YouTube and I'll just watch like a 2 or 3 minute clip of Dynasty and then get back to being my fabulous self. So I love it. Check out Dynasty. In the number 8 spot, I've watched so many episodes of Dark Shadows that the theme is just burned into my brain. I love Dark Shadows. I've talked about Dark Shadows in other videos. I talked about it in a video where I talk about some of my early horror influences. I used to watch it with my mom. If you want to see more of that video, I'll link it right here. But Dark Shadows is, again, I love campy stuff that is just unintentionally fun. It's so fun. Dark Shadows started as this sort of gothic soap opera where they were doing the typical soap opera stuff in like a spooky house. And then they just started adding all of this supernatural stuff, ghosts and witches and vampires and werewolves. And it was wild. It was so good. It's so campy. There's a really interesting history of Dark Shadows and queerness. You can find out more about that in this video where I talk about fabulous horror you should watch for Pride season. And I just love it. And I love that there's so much queer representation on that show. You can find out more in my other video that I linked, but Jonathan Frid, who was the vampire that saved the show, Barnabas Collins, was an out gay man. He wasn't out at the time, and he was never like an activist or really kind of public, but he was sort of quietly out for a good chunk of his life. I love that. I love this queer representation. I love the campiness. I'm almost through the series. There are like 1,245 episodes. I have the big coffin box set, and I've been slowly watching it and chipping away at it, and I think I have less than 200 episodes to go. You think that it's not a lot. It was a daily show that was half hour that ran for 5 years. And so it's a lot, and it can be a little repetitive, so I have to take breaks, but I'm in the final rundown of the last 200 episodes. In the number 7 spot...
It's 1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1. No, it's 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 1. Even if that were true, it would be 1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1.
In the number 7 spot, Clue. I love Clue. Now, I love the movie Clue. That's where that comes from. And, of course, it gets quoted all the time. I'm a fan of Trixie and Katya, and they're always quoting from Clue.
Flames. Flames on the side of my face. Heaving flames.
I love it, but I also love the board game. I have been obsessed with the board game Clue as a kid. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Now, I used to play with my grandmother, and I started playing when I was too young to understand that really Clue only works if you have 3 or more people. Because if you only have 2 people, if you ask about something and the other person doesn't have it, then you automatically know that that's right. And as I look back on it now, I know that my grandmother let me win a whole lot of Clue games in her life. So thank you. May she rest in peace. I appreciate letting me win all the time. But I loved Clue. I always wanted it to be Miss Scarlet in the lounge with the candlestick. That was my favorite combination. And I love Clue. I have collected several different versions. The original one, I think it's the original American version from the 50s. I think that one. There may have been an earlier one. I think it was first produced in the late 40s. It was produced in England, and it was called Cluedo. This guy came up with the game because he saw how popular Agatha Christie was. So he wanted to do like a whodunit game. And so he created this. And then it moved over to the US, and it became Clue, and the personalities are so like iconic. We know about them, and it's gone through several different iterations. So now they've kind of done away with the Mrs. White, who was like a maid character, and they've added this Dr. Orchid, I think her name is, or Dr. Lilac, something like that, to kind of update the characters. I loved it. I think it's fun. Now, I have started my very own photo series, and I'm going to share the first one right here, where I was Mrs. White with the gun in the conservatory. I took that at a recent photo shoot with Brooklyn Ewing from Dirt Candy Productions, and I'm planning to do a whole series of Clue-themed photos. I love it. I'm obsessed with Clue. And I have a bunch of the different board games from different time periods. The one I grew up with was the one that was published in the 70s. I loved it. I loved the VCR games, if anybody remembers those. And I can't believe that they never like re-released them on DVD, because they were a lot of fun on the VCR, but they were kind of a pain because you had to like rewind and fast forward all the time, because basically when you were playing the game, there were these different segments on the tape, and for each round of the game that you played, there were 5 segments. And then you had these cards that would ask you questions, and so one of the things you could do on your turn was replay a scene. So you'd have to try to rewind and find it. It was much better for those fancy people that had VCRs that had like counters, because then they could write down the number where the scene started and try to fast forward and rewind to that. But that would have been perfect for DVD, because you could just replay a scene. I cannot believe that they never thought to re-release those. But I love them. I have both of the VCR games. I have a bunch of the board games. I have the 50th anniversary edition where they added a special 50th anniversary weapon, which was poison. And I just love it. I love the whole mystery element of it. I love those kind of color-coded, very generic but very fun characters, and I just love Clue. I love to while away a day playing rounds of Clue. Although I'm a bit of a sore loser. Grandma was onto something. In the number 6 spot, I know, I've seen the documentary, I know that it's bad, but they already have my money from years and years ago, and that is Playboy the Mansion on original Xbox. So if you never saw this game, it is wild. It is basically The Sims with boobs. In the early 2000s, they released on the original Xbox and the other consoles that were popular at that time. I don't think it was an Xbox exclusive, but they had Playboy the Mansion. And it was basically a simulator game where you played as Hugh Hefner, and you had to work through a series of challenges and kind of build the Playboy empire. And so each of the challenge chapters was based around some part of the history of Playboy. So the Playboy Jazz Festival, getting the magazine published in the first place, different things that they've done, launching video, launching online at playboy.com, all of these different things. So basically what you would do is you would meet and interact with celebrities. And in order to publish a magazine, you had to get 6 pieces of content. 3 of them you could hire, and 3 of them you had to get from your famous friends and acquaintances. So you could hire a playmate to be your centerfold, you could hire journalists to write articles, and then you could hire photographers to do pictorials. So those were the ones you could always get, because you could just hire a photographer, a journalist, and a playmate. You could have them do that content. Now the other ones, you needed to actually form relationships and build up relationships with celebrities, with former playmates, and all of these different people that would come to the mansion. So random computer-generated characters. And then you would have to get a cover model. So you would have to find a female character and convince her to pose on the cover. You would also have to get an interview and an essay. And the interview and the essay could be from anybody, a male character or a female character. But you could get these pieces of content from other people. An essay they could do on their own. An interview and a cover shot, you also needed your photographer and your journalist to make those happen. So basically, to publish an issue, you needed those 6 things. And there were boobs galore. You could get them to take their tops off. They always kept their bottoms on. It was like an NC-17 game, but it wasn't that game, you know what? But in these interactions, you could go and like have sex in the hot tub, and they had these really cartoony sort of interactions. So if you're having sex in the hot tub, Hef would put on a goggles with a little snorkel and would like disappear, and then she'd start moaning or whatever. It was really cheesy. It was really cartoony. But what I thought was really interesting is that if you were just a straight boy that was like, boobs, and you were just talking to people and trying to get them to have sex, you were going to find yourself in a world of hurt really quickly. Because in order to do anything in Playboy, you got to have money. And if you're going to have money, you have to publish the magazine. And so many people were just like, oh, let me hire a playmate and then I'm going to bonk her on the couch in the living room, all this kind of stuff. And it's like, no, you better get that playmate in front of a camera, and then you better talk to somebody to be a cover model, and you better talk to somebody to write an essay, because you need to publish that magazine. And once you've published one, you better publish another one, and then you better publish another one. And it took a long time to get enough money where you were just comfortable to then be able to buy these other things for the property. And of course, as you went through the chapters, you unlocked other parts of the grounds. You got the pool, and then the grotto, and the clubhouse, and it was just a lot of fun. And there's like little secret challenges that you don't know about, but if you just happen to look into doing them, then you get little rewards. So early in the game, there's this guy who comes over with his like twin girlfriends, and if you romance both of the twin girlfriends, that celebrity will be mad at you, and later on you'll have to repair that relationship or it fucks up part of the game. But if you romance both of them while they're there on that first visit, then they will introduce you to their triplet friends. They have triplets. And so the reason why that's important is not so you can see more boobs. It's because you probably need those triplets to do cover shots and interviews and essays. And so there's a lot of mechanics behind it that I think are really interesting. I loved playing it. I loved coming up with it. And then I discovered that you could rename the characters. And let me tell you that Janessa J. Champagne has been a Playmate of the Month so many different times. She's been Playmate of the Year. She's been a cover model. She's written essays. She's done interviews. She's been busy. She's been up at that Playboy. Now, I know I saw that Playboy documentary, and I'm sort of shocked and appalled. I do have a Playboy bunny tattoo. My first tattoo ever was a Playboy bunny. And I always knew that Hugh Hefner had some problematic things about him. I didn't know until that documentary series how deep it went, and it really is kind of sketchy. And I know a lot of people have kind of walked away from that aesthetic. And I think that we have to be able to recognize both, right? We have to be able to recognize a person's contributions to culture. I think that that doesn't erase the bad things that they do. But I also think that recognizing and like talking about the bad things that somebody did means that we don't have to also erase the good things that they did, because for whatever kind of fucked up shit was going on at that mansion, and let me tell you, if you have not seen that documentary series that came out recently about Playboy, you should watch it because it's dark. But Hugh Hefner did do a lot for free speech and anti-censorship. Now, I do think that Larry Flynt has actually done more. He was the publisher and founder of Hustler. And I think that he's actually done more, and he actually took a bullet and has been paralyzed for decades because of his, like, free speech crusade. But I do think that Hefner is a complicated figure, and I think it's something to talk about. I think that we have to talk about where his place in our culture and history is. But no matter how you feel about Hugh Hefner, this game, they got my money decades ago. So every once in a while I like to pull it out and I like to replay it, because I do think that the challenge of publishing that magazine was really well done. I'm surprised more people don't talk about that game, because if you got over the boobs and you got over the like weird straight boy fantasy of it, there was actually an interesting mechanic to how the game played. I love it. In the number 5 spot,
we are the Misfits, our songs are better. We are the Misfits, and we're gonna get her.
I am going to say something controversial yet brave. I actually really like the Gem movie. Now, a lot of people hated the Gem movie, and I kind of understand why. Because it doesn't really recreate the magic of the cartoon. It's very different. But I feel like they did what they could to take the core of the Gem story and create it in a real world. So if you're going to create a Gem movie, if you think about the new Barbie movie that's coming out with Greta Gerwig, it's very stylized and very fantastical. It's kind of magical realism. And if you want to create something that's true to the cartoon, that's kind of the style you would have to take for Gem. Because it's a bit of a stretch of the imagination that she has these earrings that somehow create such lifelike holograms around her that nobody notices that she's not actually wearing those outfits or has that hair color. It's kind of like it's stretching it. It works for a cartoon because you just fucking draw her different. Like I get it. Like as a kid, I loved it. I didn't think too hard about it. As an adult, it's like, I don't think that means what you think it means. Like, I don't think it works that way. They took this core story of Jerrica Benton, who's an orphan, and her, like, foster sisters, and they created it for the MySpace generation, where she just is online, and she posts a video, and she's wearing a wig so people don't know who she is, and she's done some, like, crazy makeup, and she gets discovered, and she gets turned into this rock star. And I felt like it was true to a lot of the kind of heart of the original without actually recreating a lot of the original. So people who really wanted it to be like the cartoon were obviously going to be disappointed. Number one, there were no Misfits. So the first movie didn't have the Misfits, except for at the very end, there's like a post-credit scene. And can I say how bitter I am that we're not getting a sequel? Because Kesha was gonna fucking play Pizzazz. I would sell most of my treasured possessions. I just want Kesha to play Pizzazz. I love it. But there were no Misfits, and Eric Raymond became Erica Raymond, so they did some gender swapping, which people are never happy with. It's too woke! It's too woke! And I'm like, I don't think they did it because it was woke. I think they just wanted Juliette Lewis. Because they had a lot of young people who didn't have a lot of name recognition, so they were trying to get somebody. And they got Juliette Lewis, so suck it. But I think it's kind of a fun story. I think if you get over your disappointment of how different it is from the cartoon, I think it's a fun story, and the music is actually really good. That was the thing about the Gem cartoon, is that for being just these little short songs, and they were sometimes a little bit repetitive, there weren't a ton of lyrics, but they were actually really well done. The songs in the Gem cartoon were pretty well done for a kid's cartoon, and they had great voice actors. I think one of the things that really transfers into the movie is that they have really good music. The soundtrack to the Gem movie is kind of filled with bangers. Sorry about it. I love it. So check out the Gem movie. Get over your bitterness. I know I love the Gem cartoon as well. I love it with my whole heart, but I really think that what they did was a lot of fun.
I don't think you're ready for this jelly. I don't think you're ready for this jelly. I don't think you're ready for this jelly. Oh, my body's so bootylicious for you, babe.
In the number 4 spot, we have Destiny's Child. Anytime I'm talking about my favorite guilty pleasures, I have to talk about Destiny's Child. Now, I love Beyonce. The Lemonade album got me through a very dark time. I love Beyonce. I love what she's done as a solo artist. I think that Kelly Rowland has done some really interesting things ever since they kind of all disbanded and went their own way. And Michelle made a gospel album, so good for her. But I love Destiny's Child. I love it. Can you pay my bills? Can you pay my telephone bills? Can you pay my automobiles? If you did, then maybe we could chill. They were just perfect for that time. They were absolutely the sound of that time. They were cheesy, they were fun, they were corny, wearing those damn matching outfits that their mom made for them. Like, I love it. I just love it. And I loved that when they had all that drama where they, like, fired 2 members and got 2 more and then fired another one. And then I guess we're a trio now. Some radio DJ thought he was being funny and was like, the next season of Survivor is going to be the cast of Destiny's Child. And they took that and made a whole album called Survivor. And that song, I'm a Survivor, I thought it was great. I thought it was so fun. I've done that at karaoke. And I love that if you're in Destiny's Child, sometimes it's really easy. I was like, I'll be the 4th member of Destiny's Child. Because if it's Survivor, what? I'm a survivor. What? And you could tell that they never really knew what to do with Michelle. Because usually she was the one in the back going, what? And then there would be like one little bridge and they would give that to her. And then they'd be like, back to Beyonce. Stop paying attention to her. Nobody likes her. And so I love it. I love the craziness, the drama. I love that when they fired all those girls and got new girls, that like they made some music videos with music that was recorded with the old girls. And then the new girls that came in are like singing along and lip syncing in the video. And it's not their fucking voices because they're new. I think that's fantastic. I love it. I just think it's crazy and wild, and it's of that time when I was young and wild and having a good time, and it reminds me of that, and it just always brings me back. I will take that Bugaboo remix any day. I love it. I'm a weird man who independent. Put your hands up at me. Are you tired of me singing yet? Can't stop, won't stop. In the number 3 spot, like sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives. I have rediscovered Days of Our Lives. I used to watch it a little bit when I was a kid with my mom. She was watching it. And then I watched it in high school. That was when it was really wild. Marlena got possessed by the devil for the first time. Carly got buried alive by Vivian. It was wild. It was a lot of fun. It was campy. And then I went off to college and it was harder to catch. And I didn't really have cable and I didn't have access the same way and I kind of fell out of it. And every once in a while I would buy like a soap opera digest and just read about what was going on or whatever. But I recently got into it again when Marlena got possessed again and then the devil kind of hopped around Salem. And I love it. And I don't just love the supernatural storylines. I also just love how campy and over the top all of it is. I love that right now, like, Nicole is pregnant, and if you're getting pregnant on a soap opera, you are not going to know who the baby daddy is. That's just the rule. If you sleep with 2 men within 7 days of each other, bitch, you're getting pregnant. Like, you don't need to know. You don't need anybody to clue you in on the script. Just know if you have sex with 2 different people within any reasonable amount of time, your character's about to get pregnant. So prepare, because that's going to happen. I love it. I love the drama. I love the campiness. Right now I'm watching it, and Abe had to have surgery, and he was kind of coming out of it, and he was groggy, and they had this nurse who's an actress who they made up to look kind of like Paulina, and then she kidnapped him, and then she took him back to her house, and she's a crazy stuffed cat lady, is how she described herself, because she's a crazy cat lady, but she's allergic to cats, so she just has all these stuffed cats. It's so bizarre. I just love it. I love it. It's wild. It's crazy. I think it's so much fun. And the eye candy doesn't hurt either. I love it. So Days of Our Lives, it's been around for a long time. Deidre Hall just hit 5,000 episodes. She has the most episodes, I think, of any daytime performer. She's been on there for decades. She's still a lot of fun. It's just so good. I just enjoy it. It's campy. It's fun. I love it on Peacock. I love tuning in every day to watch my stories. In the number 2 spot,
Golden Girl and the Guardians of the Gemstones.
I told you, I can't stop, won't stop. So Golden Girl is this vintage toy line from the 80s, and it was meant to be kind of a companion to He-Man. Mattel put out He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, I think starting in 1982. And by 1984, 1985, Mattel realized that they didn't really have a girls line. So people have always been trying to gender toys where you have to have girls' toys and boys' toys. The 80s were wild. The 80s were super gendered. Anything for boys was like blue, black, put spikes on it, like throw some blood on it. Like, it was crazy. And then anything for girls, it was like pink. How can we make it more pink? Can we have it so pink that your eyes bleed? Like, it was too much. With He-Man, they were like, well, girls might want to play with the boys who are playing with He-Man. And instead of thinking, what if we just put more female action figures in the He-Man line? They only ever had 3 in that original run of He-Man, the original launch in that first kind of generation of He-Man. So Mattel was like, we should put out a female line, and then little girls can play with their brothers, they can play with other friends, all this kind of stuff. But we can also have a line for just girls that's frilly and blah, blah, blah. Now, around the same time, Galoob also saw this hole in the market of there isn't really a girl's equivalent to He-Man, so they started developing Golden Girl. And the line is a little bit taller. Obviously, they didn't want to get sued, and so they had to make some changes. But whereas She-Ra is actually shorter than He-Man, the Golden Girl dolls are taller than He-Man. And they actually seem to fit better when you consider that they're taller but also smaller in size than the big bulky chested He-Man figures. They actually seem to fit better with the line. Now, some people will say that Golden Girl is a ripoff of She-Ra. That's not true. They were actually developed at around the same time. Now, there is some potential for maybe industry gossip or a little bit of espionage happening. It wasn't like She-Ra came out and then they were like, oh, let's copy that. They were actually developed concurrently. So they each filed their trademark for the name of their line at around the same time, about a month apart, and She-Ra was the first to market. She-Ra beat Golden Girl by about a month. All of that is going to be in the video series that's coming out, but I love Golden Girl, and what I love about it is that it's actually very easy to collect. Now, it didn't last very long because in the 80s, if you didn't have a cartoon, you were done for. All of those really big 80s properties that we remember all had their own cartoons. He-Man, She-Ra, Care Bears, Strawberry Shortcake. You needed to have that pumped right into your living room advertising to get your kids all frothed up to sell those toys. So Golden Girl only lasted for a year, but because it didn't last very long and it was kind of not as well known, it's fairly easy to collect. You can find lots of listings for it. You can find lots of the outfits and the dolls still in the packaging. So I love collecting it, and I love finding even some of the oddball merch items, and I'm very excited to show those off in the upcoming video series. And in the #1 spot, we are once again gonna get controversial yet brave, and I can feel the nerd rage building even now. Who you gonna call? I love the female remake of Ghostbusters. Those 4 women are so good. They are like the cream of the crop of women in comedy right now. Melissa McCarthy, Kristen Wiig, Kate McKinnon is a comedy gift from the little baby Jesus. Like, just so fantastic. And Leslie Jones coming in that Winston Zeddemore role of the person who's maybe not as much of like a scientist, but kind of that every person kind of thing. I loved it. I thought it was fun. I thought some of the effects were a little bit campy or whatever, but I loved it. And you know what? I'm going to say something that, again, is going to ignite some of the nerd rage. I like it better than the original. I watched Ghostbusters as a kid. I saw Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2. I watched both of the cartoons, like the official and the like Filmation Ghostbusters. I had a bunch of Ghostbusters toys, but I don't have any real nostalgia for the films. I kind of remember them, but I haven't watched them for years. It was never one that I really felt this need to like rewatch and rewatch. I own the Blu-ray of the new Ghostbusters, and I love it. And it's such a shame that it was not more successful and that we're probably not getting a sequel, because I think it is so funny. It is so well done. It is so well plotted, and I just think there was so much room for them to grow into those roles. I think they were so good. And that comedy team, those 4 women are just absolutely gorgeous. I want them to have a sequel, and I want Chris Hemsworth to be in it just shirtless the whole time. I just love him, and I love them, and they are entertaining, and he's beautiful, and that's what I need in my life. I need funny and beautiful men with no clothes on, just entertaining me. That's what I need. I love Ghostbusters. I think it was great. I know people are all big mad about it, but I don't care. That's why it's a guilty pleasure. If you want to be mad, sound off in the comments. Guess what? That's engagement too, bitch. So be mad about it. But tell me about it below. So that's the video. I hope you enjoyed this little walk through my top 10 guilty pleasures. And again, I only call them guilty pleasures because I'm acknowledging that maybe they're not like the most popular, the most trendy. I am all pleasure and no guilt. I feel no guilt about it. Someone once said to me, they're like, you know, it's only a guilty pleasure if you feel guilty about it. And I never feel guilty about these. I love all of them unabashedly, but I kind of celebrate their sort of trashiness, right? Like, I think that that's part of it, that we don't always have to love these things that are the most, like, I love a good, thoughtful piece. I love something that's got some weight to it and some merit. Sometimes I just want some fun entertainment. Sometimes I just want to shake my big old voluptuous milkshake to some bootylicious. Like, I don't think you're ready for this jelly. That's true. That's truth. You don't have to read Shakespeare for truth. I don't think you're ready for this jelly. That's truth. So let me know what you thought about this video and of my guilty pleasures down in the comments below. While you're down there, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button to tell me that you appreciated this video. Or if you are horrified by me desecrating the Ghostbusters and you are like Dan Aykroyd's personal assistant and you just want to read me to filth, you can go ahead and give me that thumbs down. That is just fine. You know what? I'll take it. It's all engagement. The algorithm isn't a picky bitch, and neither am I. And while you're down there, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you'll be notified of all future uploads. I try really hard to make sure I have at least one video a week, and sometimes you might even have a bonus video. Ooh, She-Ra ripoff-tastic. If you'd like to chat, banter, or commiserate between uploads, all of my social media will be linked down in the description box below, including a link to my website, The World of Champagne at JanessaJ.com. Thank you so much for watching. I love and appreciate all of you. We are almost to 300 subscribers. Maybe by the time this video comes out, we will be there. I love and appreciate all of you so much. Thank you for stopping by. You are my guilty pleasure. And until I see you again, bye. We're all friends here. We are here to friend. We're here to friend.
It's a verb.
You had... Oh, who played Crystal? Linda Evans. Final rundown of the last 200 episodes. Dark Shadows. Dark Shadows. Let me just say it again. So Golden Girls is this vintage 80s toy line. It was put out by Galoob. Yeah.
Isn't it just Golden Girl?
Golden Girl, yeah.
You said Golden Girls, plural.
Oh. I don't think I did, but we'll check.
You said Golden Girls.
When I sang it, I only said Golden Girl.
No, correct.
Yeah.
That you did, but then Golden Girls, yeah.
I'll wait until I edit this.
You let me know!
So Golden Girls...
You let me know!
And then I almost did. I came in like a wrecking ball. That's a different guilty pleasure.